Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. Really appreciate you being here. I've got lots of information coming out, some updates regarding yesterday's U.S. retaliatory strikes inside of Iraq and Syria. As you can see here on your screen, Iraq and Syria has come out and said that there could be dangerous consequences for these strikes. And it looks like we kicked the hornet's nest here because I'm going to be showing you some information on these militia groups that they're already starting to attack back, okay? And so if you see this video as well on your screen, these are, looks like B-1 bombers taking off. And many of these B-1 bombers were used in the raids, the bombing raids that took place just yesterday in Iraq and Syria. We dropped lots and lots of munitions, and many of them were dropped from these B-1 bombers that came from the U.S. So they flew all the way from the U.S. to Iraq and Syria. All right, and this video came out on U.S. Central Command CENTCOM's Twitter, okay, just in the last 24 hours, and they came out and said Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups continue to represent a direct threat to the stability of Iraq, the region, and the safety of Americans. We will continue to take action and do whatever is necessary to protect our people and hold those responsible who threaten their safety. This was General Michael Eric Correa, U.S. CENTCOM commander, that said that. All right, and also I want to go over a quick press release here from CENTCOM. Let me show you this. This is basically an update, so if you weren't really aware of what was going on yesterday, this will kind of summarize it for you. So CENTCOM statement on U.S. strikes in Iraq and Syria. At 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, February 2nd, U.S. Central Command CENTCOM forces conducted airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups. U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets with numerous aircraft to include long-range bombers flown from the United States. The airstrikes employed more than 125 precision munitions. The facilities that were struck included command and control operations centers, intelligence centers, rockets, missiles, unmanned aerial vehicle storage, and logistics and munition supply chain facilities of militia groups and their IRGC sponsors who facilitated attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. So, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, he did come out and say that this was going to be a larger attack than what they have ever done before, and it was pretty massive. There was about 85 targets that were hit, and I was hearing reports as well that many of these locations that got hit, there was secondary explosions on top of the bombs that were dropped. So it looks like many different, most likely missiles and rockets were destroyed, UAVs were destroyed. Many of these manufacturing facilities for these drones were destroyed. So it was a pretty heavy hit. But again, we have some information showing that these groups are already coming out and launching attacks. So it looks like many of these groups as well had safely evacuated due to the U.S. having such a long delay in response time. So we waited about, 5 or 6 days just to respond. I'm not sure why they waited so long, but I think they were really just trying to make sure that these strikes were precise and that we didn't expand the war over here. And that's why they struck Iraq and Syria and not Iran, even though there was a lot of talk that they may have gone after Iran. Okay, so I also have a CENTCOM update. We're gonna switch wars for a minute. Okay, we're not gonna talk about Iraq and Syria for just a moment. I'm gonna talk about the Houthis. I want to give you an update here. Okay, so this is a CENTCOM press release statement that just came out this morning. Okay. So I know it's kind of small, but I'm going to read it for you and we'll go over this. So on February 2nd at approximately 10:30 a.m. Sanaa time, USS Carney engaged and shot down one unmanned aerial vehicle, a UAV, over the Gulf of Aden. There were no injuries or damage reported. Later that same day, at approximately 4:40 p.m. Sanaa time, U.S. Central Command forces conducted strikes against 4 Houthi UAVs that were prepared to launch. U.S. forces identified the UAVs in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen and determined that they presented an imminent threat to merchant vessels and the U.S. Navy ships in the region. U.S. forces subsequently struck and destroyed the UAVs in self-defense. Then, at 9:20 p.m. Sanaa time, USS Laboon and F-18s from the Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group engaged and shot down 7 UAVs over the Red Sea. There were no injuries or damage reported. These actions will protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer and more secure for U.S. Navy vessels and merchant vessels. So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because, well, for one, the U.S. warships down in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden are still under attack. So these Houthis have been attacking mainly the warships now. They're attacking U.S. forces directly. They're not so much targeting commercial shipping as of the last few days. So they're definitely targeting the U.S. forces directly now, and they're starting to use a lot more drones and not so much ballistic missiles. And also, I believe this is in response to these U.S. retaliatory strikes that we launched inside of Iraq and Syria. So again, more attacks inside of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden directed at U.S. forces. So I just wanted to let you know about that and give you some information there and an update. So that's the latest on the Houthis in Yemen. But, again, this is an Iranian-backed group. And, we got them attacking U.S. warships down in the Red Sea. So lots of different militia groups here that are attacking U.S. forces. And it doesn't look like it's going to end here. It's starting to get really bad. And I believe the U.S. just kicked the hornet's nest here by dropping all these bombs on Iraq and Syria. And I'm going to be showing you more information on that in just a moment. But also just a little bit more information to share here for you. The U.S. strikes in Iraq and Syria are a strategic mistake, is what Iran said. Iran's come out and said that airstrikes on targets in Iraq and Syria in retaliation for the death of 3 American soldiers in Jordan were a violation of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iraq and Syria, international law, and a clear violation of the United Nations Charter, a spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry said today. Spokesperson Nassar Kanani added that the attacks were another strategic mistake by the U.S. and would have no result other than escalation of tension and instability in the region. So, just like I said, they kicked the hornet's nest here. This is going to flare up even more, and it's only going to make things worse. And didn't I say that in one of my last videos? I did say that the U.S. has no choice but to strike. But in return, all it's going to do is just make everything over here worse. The only thing that can happen here is the U.S. will be blamed for these strikes by these militias and Iran and all these groups that are involved, and that'll only give them more justification to continue attacking U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria and warships down in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. They're only going to continue here. Okay, the UK also came out obviously, and they support the U.S. in their attacks. Hamas said that the attacks on Iraq and Syria are a dangerous escalation. All right. We still got these attacks going on in the Red Sea. And U.S. Central Command has come out and said they will continue to take any action that's necessary. So this is going to continue, guys. It's going to keep going. It's not going to get any better. I want to go over this article a little bit for you real quick. So U.S. launches strikes in Iraq, Syria, nearly 40 reported killed. Okay, so we've got approximately 40 people amongst Iraq and Syria that were hit, and apparently there was even civilians that were killed too, so very terrible. But I think the U.S. was anticipating that civilians would be killed in these strikes, and there were civilians that were killed. So let's kind of briefly go over this here. United States launched airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against more than 85 targets linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps and militias it backs, reportedly killing nearly 40 people in retaliation for a deadly attack on U.S. troops. The strikes, which included the use of long-range B-1 bombers flown from the United States, were the first in response to the attack last weekend in Jordan by Iran-backed militants, and more U.S. military operations are expected in the coming days. The strikes intensified a conflict that has spread into the region since the war erupted between Israel and Hamas. after the militant Palestinian group's deadly assault on Israel on October 7th. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Nassar Kanani said in a statement that attacks represented another adventurous and strategic mistake by the United States that will result only in increased tension and instability. So again, there you go. Like I said, this is only going to create more instability in the region. It will not make anything better. But at the same time, the United States had no choice but to strike back because of those troops being killed. If these troops weren't killed, there'd be no really reason to continue to attack. And that's what the U.S. has been doing here most of the time, is whenever we've had approximately 170 attacks by now on U.S. troops inside of Iraq and Syria. And for the most part, all we did was just shoot down these rockets. Yes, we launched a few airstrikes here and there to try to deter, but it was nothing major enough to really deter them. And supposedly that was the whole idea of this major operation yesterday of these bombing runs, was to really, deter the militia groups from attacking U.S. troops some more. But obviously that's not going to be the case here. We're going to continue to have these attacks, and it's only going to worsen. Okay, it's just like here, the increase in tension and instability. Iraq summoned the U.S. chargé d'affaires in Baghdad to deliver a formal protest. Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces, a state security force including Iran-backed groups, said 16 of its members were killed, including fighters and medics. The government earlier said civilians were among the 16 dead. In Syria, the strikes killed 23 people who had been guarding the targeted locations, said Rami Abdul Rahman, director of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which reports on war in Syria. U.S. Lieutenant General Douglas Sims, the director of the Joint Staff, said the attacks appeared to be successful, triggering large secondary explosions as the bombs hit militant weaponry. He said the strikes were undertaken knowing that there would likely be casualties among those in the facilities. Despite the strikes, the Pentagon has said it does not want war with Iran, and it does not believe Tehran wants war either, even as Republican pressures increase on U.S. President Joe Biden to deal a blow directly. Iran, which backs Hamas, has sought to stay out of the regional conflict itself, even as it backs groups that have entered the fray from Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria, the so-called axis of resistance that is hostile to Israel and U.S. interests. Okay, so we'll have to see what really comes out here from Iran. But for the most part, Iran's just coming out and saying, hey, this was a heinous act. The U.S. should have not launched these strikes. And, this is a breach in Syria and Iraq's, territorial integrity and their sovereignty of their nation. So right now it looks like they're playing more the kind of the role of just saying, hey, we're going to be the bigger and the better ones here. You shouldn't be doing that, kind of playing mommy and daddy here kind of thing. Okay, big daddy. All right, so also I want to show you this picture here real quick. These are some of the areas that were hit inside of Iraq and Syria. So I'll try to read some of these here. Deir al-Zor, Al-Mayadeen Power Station, Bukamal, Al-Qaim, and Akashat. So these were some of the targets that were struck by U.S. forces whenever we launched those bombing raids. So looks like kind of in the center there on the border of Syria and Iraq was where most of these attacks took place. So very crazy what's going on over here. And I've got another article here pulled up. We'll kind of go over this just a little bit real quick. There you go. So strategic error, Iran condemns U.S. attacks on Iraq and Syria. So it's kind of going a little bit more to what Iran had to say. Again, they said that this was violations of sovereignty and territorial integrity of the two countries. So Iraq and Syria, obviously, right? That's what the foreign ministry said coming out of Iran. So Iran says the attacks by the United States inside Iraq and Syria are strategic error. I wonder what they mean by strategic error. I'm assuming it probably has something to do with escalation, that this is going to cause only more, tensions, instability, right? And it's only going to cause these groups to attack more is basically what's going to happen. And obviously, Iran's going to go and tell these groups to go ahead and keep attacking the U.S. They're not going to stop. All these militia groups, Iran's come out, many different countries, the Hezbollah group in Lebanon, Hamas, the Houthis, all these groups are coming out and saying, we're going to continue to attack U.S. troops and attack Israel until the war in Gaza is over. And another big thing that these Iranian groups, along with Iran, are stating is that they want the U.S. to completely pull all their troops out of Iraq and Syria. And many people would probably argue, yes, we shouldn't be there anyway. I completely agree with you. But the reality is that the U.S. is not going to pull their troops out of there. It's not going to happen. At least not anytime soon. May it happen some point in the future? It's possible. But many of these troops are over here guarding, oil. Okay, we're still getting oil from the Middle East. And we have so many interests over here that we have to protect that they can't just necessarily just pull all these troops out. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. So what are we going to continue to see here? As long as the war in Gaza goes on, the U.S. troops are going to be under attack. Israel's going to be under attack. And until troops are pulled out of the Middle East, they might continue to be under attack even if the war in Gaza ends. So understand that too. So this could be going on for a very long time. And I've been saying as well that the longer we stay over here, the more likely something is going to happen. And then what just happened on Sunday, we had that drone strike on that base in Jordan that basically kickstarted all these retaliation strikes from the U.S. to begin with. So this is going to be an endless cycle of back and forth attacks. And it's only going to lead us closer and closer to a war with Iran. That's what it's going to do. So the longer that this goes on, the closer we get to going to war with Iran. U.S. forces launched a wave of airstrikes against Iranian-backed fighters in Iraq and Syria on Friday in retaliation for a drone attack in Jordan that killed 3 American soldiers on Sunday. U.S. President Joe Biden later said the strikes will continue at times in places of our choosing. In a statement on Saturday, Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Nassar Kanani said the U.S. attacks were a violation of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iraq and Syria, international law, and a clear violation of the United Nations Charter. The attacks merely support the goals of the Zionist regime, which is Israel. Such attacks increasingly involve the U.S. government in the region and overshadow the crimes of the Zionist regime in Gaza, it said, referring to Israel. So they're also, again, coming out and blaming that the U.S. is supporting the genocide attacks inside of Gaza. And, again, the Zionist regime, they always refer that to Israel. Okay, they don't like Israel at all, and then they don't like us because we're supporting Israel. Okay, so it's a big problem over here. The continuation of such adventures is a threat to regional and international peace and security. It added, urging the United Nations Security Council and the international community to prevent the expansion of the crisis. The Iranian statement said that the roots of the tension and crisis in the region go back to the occupation by the Israeli regime and the continuation of this regime's military operations in Gaza and the genocide of the Palestinians with the unlimited support of the U.S. So that's a big statement right there. That's the reason why all this is going on. It's two things. It's Israel attacking Gaza and committing what they're considering genocidal acts, which many would argue that it probably is genocidal acts. And, Israel is also held up in international court right now, still trying to defend themselves to prove that it's not genocide. All right, we're actually approaching maybe about 2 more weeks, maybe a week, 2 weeks, where Israel's going to have to report to the court and state that they're not committing genocidal acts and that they're limiting their strikes to Hamas targets, and they're not causing mass casualties to the civilian population, because they've been killing lots and lots. I want to say probably at least somewhere between 24 and 26,000 have died already in Gaza. Lots of innocent civilians. So, yeah, this is a big deal over here, what's going on. And Iran and these militia groups are not happy with what's going on over there, and they don't like the U.S. or Israel being over there right now. So this is only going to continue to create instability in the region, and we're only going to continue to have more and more problems, right? It's only going to get worse. So I also got one last article here to share with you. And this really will not surprise you at all. It will not surprise you. So take a look at this. It's interesting too because this information, particularly right here that you see on your screen, there's not very many news media outlets reporting it. You really have to go dig to find it. But luckily, the Telegraph, pretty major news organization, went ahead and reported on this. So just hours after the U.S. launched their massive bombing campaign inside of Iraq and Syria just yesterday, Iraqi militants launched more drone attacks on several different bases inside of Iraq and Syria. So more U.S. troops came under attack. Obviously, the U.S. was in preparation for this. The Jordan base that was attacked just on Sunday, they put up more air defenses over there, and they've been bolstering their defenses at all these different bases throughout Iraq and Syria because they were anticipating to be attacked back, and that's exactly what happened just hours after, right? Iraqi militants launched drone attack on base hosting U.S. troops, okay? Islamic resistance in Iraq fighters launched a drone attack on the Al-Harir Airbase hosting American forces in northern Iraq, the group said. According to reports, attacks were also carried out by Iran-aligned groups on the Tanf military base in Syria and on the Ain al-Assad base in western Iraq. So three bases came under attack literally just hours, okay? Literally just hours after these strikes were launched inside of Iraq and Syria. Okay, this supposedly was a huge bombing campaign, but these groups were still able to attack back. So that's really all the information that's coming out on this. There's not a whole lot yet coming out. Maybe there will be more information coming out on this soon, but I have a feeling that this is being a little covered up here. There's somewhat of a media blackout in terms of retaliation, but no, more of these bases here, okay? This is the Al-Harir Air Base near Erbil in northern Iraq. This base came under attack as well. Okay, so yeah, I mean, what have I said so many times that these attacks are going to continue? They're not going to stop, and no matter how many times the U.S. bombs Iraq, Syria, even if they go after Iran, no matter what happens, these groups will continue to attack. Okay, they're so widespread. They've got missiles and drones and hidden in caves, and they could be hiding them wherever, not just in warehouses that have been struck. Okay, we would have to constantly be bombing daily if they really wanted to put any kind of pressure and suppression on this on these attacks. That'd really be the only way to do it. It can't just be one attack a week or something like that. They'd really have to be bombing like almost every single day, like as if we're actually at war with them, right? So, yeah, lots of big problems over here. What's going on? And like I keep saying, the longer that we stay in this over here, the closer we're going to get to going to war with Iran. Okay, so, and some major war breaking out over here. But I don't think major war will ever break out until Iran gets involved. Other than that, it's just going to be these little proxy groups coming after U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria, and then the Houthis will continue doing their thing down over in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, attacking warships. So basically, the landscape of the situation that I see here is that we're bound to see another U.S. Base attack or a warship attacked or something like that, where more troops are unfortunately going to get killed. Okay, this is very likely to happen again, just like what happened on Sunday. I hope that it does not happen. I'm not calling for it to happen, but it's very easy to telegraph what's going to happen here in the future. You can just see the lining here, okay, of what's going to happen, and it's not going to be good. It's going to be a bad outcome, and like I said, the longer we stay out here, the closer we get to war with Iran. So I'm really hoping that the Gaza war wraps up, but I'm not very optimistic that even if that war ends, that these militia groups will stop. That they will stop attacking the U.S. because We've been supporting this war in Gaza for so long now, and they might want to continue to exact revenge even after that whole thing, ends down in Gaza. And there's a lot of talk as well right now. I might do a video on it here pretty soon that the U.S. might be, or I mean, excuse me, that Israel might be going after Hezbollah here pretty soon. Okay, there's been lots and lots of exchange of fire on the northern border of Israel, and a very big possibility that they could be going after Hezbollah here pretty soon. So this is really just going to expand. Okay, it's going to expand, and if Israel really goes after Hezbollah, it's going to really make this region pop off big time. Okay, and it's only going to continue to keep the battles over here going, and things will only worsen. So we're going to be seeing more bombing raids from the U.S. coming up pretty soon. They're going to be launching more strikes inside of Iraq and Syria, and these groups will continue to attack U.S. troops in at these military bases inside of Iraq and Syria as well. So expect to see more of this, and this is only another expansion of the war, and it is clearly expanding. If you look with your own eyes, it is only continuing to get worse. So I hope you're making preparations for yourself. Take this information with what you will and do something with it. Prepare yourselves and prepare your families, because this could really get out of hand very quick. And we are already starting to see oil prices starting to spike. And that's exactly why I think they launched these strikes over the weekend, so it wouldn't impact markets in the United States. But I think we're going to see oil going up here due to these strikes. And if these strikes continue, oil will only continue to go up. And if Iran gets involved, we're really going to have a problem with oil and oil prices. So stay tuned to my channel. If you enjoy these updates, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, hit the notification bell. YouTube will notify you, all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I'll put out some more videos today. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody take care. God bless and have a good one.